guys, Work here, welcome back to the bench, and welcome to another Carry Compare. This week on Carry Compare, we've got CZ's subcompact offering, the CZ 2075 Rami versus the baby Glock, the Glock 26. This particular one is a Gen 4. So those of you who are new to Carry Compares, what we're going to do here is we're going to take actual firearms, real guns, and we're going to look at the measurements and the attributes that are taken into consideration when you're looking at a carry firearm, and we're going to let you guys know what the differences and similarities are between the two. Let's go ahead and get started. First up, let's talk about stock features. Working from the top down, the Rami comes with CZ's tritium vial night sights. These are 3-dot sights with tritium inserts and are actually fairly acceptable sights, especially as far as stock sights go. The Glock 26 comes with Glock's standard plastic sights. This one has been upgraded to Ameriglows, but standard, these come with Glock's standard plastic U and dot sights. Coming down to the action, they both have the similar Browning drop block action. The Rami, despite being a CZ, does not have the dual lug action of the CZ75 line. This action is more similar to the Glock action. Both of these are chambered in 9mm, and as far as fit and finish up on the slide in this area up here, the Rami is, well, it's kind of blocky. It doesn't have any sharp edges here, but this is a relatively sharp edge down here. It does have lightning cuts along the sides of the slide, which reduce the thickness a little bit here, and the sights are slightly swept back. As for the Glock 26, it does have some radiusing and chamfering done up here on the front to assist with reholstering, but other than that, everything is pretty much standard Glock. Next up, let's go to the action and the triggers. The 26 is Glock's single action and a half striker fired system, which in this particular gun gives you about a 6.5 pound trigger. It's a single weight trigger pull and pretty consistent every time, but it is that 6.5 pound trigger, and it's got your standard Glock mush to the trigger. The Rami trigger is a pretty standard CZ75 trigger group, which means you're going to be looking at about a 12 pound double action first pull, and your subsequent single action pulls after the slide cycles are going to be around that 7 pound mark. Now you can upgrade both of these. You can get the Glock trigger to be slightly more crisp. You can pull the CZ trigger down in pull weight. The Glock will be cheaper. The CZ's trigger will be slightly nicer, depending on preference. As for the ergonomics, really, and this is going to make some CZ guys upset, the grips in your hand feel about the same. Despite this being a CZ, this does not maintain the CZ75 ergonomics, so this doesn't feel quite as nice in the hand as the standard CZ75s like the P01 or the 75 or SP01 feel. It does contour relatively well, slightly better than the Glock, but the biggest difference between the two is the amount of real estate that you're going to get on your grip. The Rami, especially with the addition of the kind of pinky grip here, will allow for my medium hands to get my pinky on there and be able to get basically a full firing grip. The 26, on the other hand, does not. My pinky finger just slides right off of there, and actually, oftentimes when firing, it gets pinched in this little chin area, and it's really not the most comfortable situation. I think Glock should probably get rid of that. Magazines, both of these firearms do run a 10-round magazine. The Rami runs a 75 style thin steel magazine, so this will actually be compatible with larger 75 magazines, such as the 14 rounders in the P01 and the 17 plus rounders in the larger full-size guns. The 26 has a standard profile Glock magazine, again 10 rounds, but this also makes this compatible with all of the other Glock magazines. Glock 19, Glock 17, all of those magazines are compatible with the 26. So both of these have compatibility with the larger magazines in their respective families. Let's go over controls really quick. So if we flip over to this side, you can see both firearms have standard magazine releases. Both are reversible, and both drop the magazines. The Rami's magazine drop is a little bit more positive than the Glock, but that's pretty standard for both of these model types. Both have non-ambidextrous slide catch slide releases. The Rami's is a little bit further forward than the Glock's, making the Glock's a little bit easier to reach without breaking firing grip. The Rami does have a decocker in this particular model. The Glock, that is pretty much it. Very simple controls on both the Glock and the Rami. As the Rami is a decocker, it doesn't have a safety to worry about, making its firing system very similar in ease to the Glock. Now obviously you do have that double action pull to worry about with the Rami, and that double action pull may be a deal breaker for some of you because that stock 12 pound pull is extremely heavy if you are not used to pulling double action triggers. The Glock and its 5.5-pound pull, relatively tame in comparison. With that, let's go ahead and get to some sizes. First up, let's size the Rami out, and we are going to be doing overall sizes here. We're going to be doing magazines present in both firearms. The Rami's overall length is looking to be right at about 6.5 inches. The height is sitting at 4 3/4 inches, and our sight radius is sitting right at 5 inches. Let's go ahead and jump over to the Glock 26. And the Glock 26 is sitting at an overall length of 5 1/4 inches, an overall height of 4 1/4 inches, and a sight radius of, again, around 5 inches. So compared to the 26, lengthwise, we're looking at about 1/4 of an inch shorter on the 26. Height, we're looking at a full 1/2 of an inch shorter, and our sight radius is staying about the same. Now let's go ahead and check thickness. So as brought up the last time that I measured the Rami that people didn't like where I was measuring, that I was measuring its thickest area. So instead, we're not going to measure purely the thickest area. We're basically going to measure the largest area of the frame itself. So on the Rami, that would be either the frame or the grips. We're going to go ahead and measure both. First up, the frame on the Rami is going to be sitting at about 1.1 inches. When we take the grips into account, we're sitting at about 1.26 inches. Now let's go ahead and check the Glock. Again, we're going to check the frame thickness, which is 1.15 inches. And on the Glock, since it doesn't have grip panels, that is pretty much the entire width of the firearm. So we're only looking at about 1/10 of an inch thinner on the 26 here. Next up, let's go ahead and check weights. We're going to go ahead and check these magazines in. Glock 26 is weighing in at 1 pound, 5.5 ounces, and the Rami is weighing in at 1 pound, 9.9 ounces, approximately 4.4 ounces heavier. Okay guys, so there you've got the measurement differences between the two firearms. We've got about 4.4 ounces heavier on the Rami. The Rami's sitting at about 0.1 inches thicker, about 1/2 of an inch higher, and about 1/4 of an inch longer. Now let's talk a little bit about firing characteristics. Again, both of these firearms are 10-round magazines in their smallest form. We'll talk about that here in a minute. In their smallest form, again, with the CZ, I can fit my pinky on this extension. With the 26, I really can't. As far as accuracy goes, these firearms are on par with each other. It's going to wholly depend on the shooter and how the shooter handles the ergonomics of each firearm as to which one they shoot more accurately. Under slow fire, I did notice that the Rami felt like it had a slightly softer recoil. However, I could get the Glock on target slightly quicker than I could the Rami. I have a feeling that a large possibility of that might be the aftermarket sights that the Glock is running. That being said, the stock sight setup on the Rami is significantly superior to the stock setup on the Glock 26. And there's a reason for that. Really, your sight options when it comes to the Rami are relatively slim when compared to something like a Glock. The 26 takes standard Glock cut sights. The Rami takes a specific cut sight for the Rami firearm itself. So any sights that you want that fit on a Glock, you can fit on the 26. However, the Rami doesn't have that parts availability. So the stock sights on the Rami are significantly better. The aftermarket sights for the Glock 26 are also significantly better. I will say that just taking it to the range and shooting, I do find the Rami more comfortable to shoot, primarily because of this little chin down here on the 26 and that it kept pinching my pinky. Now, I know some users with larger hands don't have that issue because their pinky just hangs way off of this thing. But if you look at my firing grip, my pinky sits right across that and does get pinched. So now that we've talked about firing characteristics, let's go ahead and talk about carry characteristics now. As stated, the Rami is slightly larger and heavier by about 4 ounces and 1/2 of an inch in overall height. So if you guys remember back to the carry compare between the Rami and the larger P01 and PCR, you'll remember that the P01 is about 1/2 of an inch taller, and when fully loaded with 4 additional rounds to the Rami, is about 4 ounces heavier. And if you read the comments on that, there are a lot of people who are willing to diminish size by about 1/2 of an inch and take that 4-ounce hit for 4 less rounds. Here, you've got a 4-ounce lighter gun and 1/2 of an inch smaller gun with the same round count. So the 26 is going to carry slightly nicer than the Rami. Further compounding that is aftermarket availability of things like holsters. The Rami has holsters. My personal one is made by Alex and Ryan, but I know that Holster Co. also makes them, as well as I think Long Shadow and a couple other holster makers. The Glock 26, on the other hand, is made by dang near everybody. If there's a holster maker out there, they're gonna have a holster that fits the 26. And what that does is that gives you the ability to fine-tune your setup to exactly what you like. With the Rami, you're pretty much stuck with a couple options. It's not that those options are bad, it's just that they don't allow the fine-tuning like a more available frame such as the Glock 26. In addition to that, the Rami does have this beaver tail here. Now this beaver tail is a joy when you're actually firing the firearm. However, when you're carrying it, this can stuff into your side if you bend over and poke into it, especially carrying appendix. Glocks with their blunt backs almost seem like they're made specifically for appendix carry. Speaking of aftermarket, let's go into some of that stuff. Now, we've gone over sights, we've gone over holsters. We can look at some of the other products. Magazines. So magazines for the Rami, you're probably looking at around $30 to $35. Magazines for the 26, you're looking at probably around $15 to $25. The Rami does come with 2 magazines. It comes with the standard 10-round magazine, as well as the addition of a 14-round magazine. The 14-round magazine essentially making the firearm as long as a P01. And in this case, if you want to carry this extended magazine, I would consider just getting rid of the Rami and getting a P01. The 26 comes with between 2 and 3 10-round magazines, depending on the generation that you get. If you're wanting to do internal modifications to the Glock can be done starting at around $30. Internal modifications for the CZ can be done for around the same amount, but that's going to be simple things such as a hammer spring. And if you do the hammer spring, you're going to need to do the firing pin spring. You should probably do the firing pin anyway because of this crossbar here. And with this guy, it's just going to kind of snowball if you start to do modifications. So you're going to ring up a lot more money modifying the Rami than you will the Glock 26. That being said, you definitely won't have the cool hipster points running the 26. So to summarize, we've got 2 firearms here that take aim at the subcompact firearm from completely different directions. We've got the all-metal aluminum alloy frame hammer-fired Rami and the polymer-frame striker-fired Glock. And I'll let you decide which one is best for you. But this is it. This is them laid out with no books, nobody skewing the numbers. This is just straight up numbers, straight from what we can see. Hope this helps out if you're looking into either one of the firearms. And if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments below, and we'll get back to you as quick as we can. If you found this video useful, go ahead and like and subscribe down below. If you're looking forward to any other carry compares, go ahead and hit that notification bell because we are definitely going to do some more coming up soon. Remember guys, I appreciate every one of you, and until next time, do your research, get informed, and get to work.